Hello everyone, welcome back to my B&B Today's spoiler channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Steffy Forrester had always been the one who noticed things first. A shift in tone, a missed call, the particular silence of someone carrying a weight they hadn't named yet. So when Daphne Rose started pulling away, going quiet at lunches, canceling plans at the last minute, Steffy didn't need to be told something was wrong. She just needed Daphne to say it out loud. She found her at the apartment on a slow afternoon, and she didn't leave until Daphne finally broke. "I'm pregnant," Daphne said. "It's Carter's." Steffy sat with that for a moment. Not shock, exactly. More like pieces sliding into place. Does he know? No. And he can't. Not yet. Daphne's hands were shaking. You know what happens when a pregnancy touches this family. It stops being a baby and starts being a headline. A weapon. I can't do that to a kid before he's even born. So what do you want? Daphne didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was smaller than Steffy had ever heard it. I want him safe. I don't know if I can give him that. Not the way he deserves. Steffy listened. She didn't flinch, didn't lecture, didn't reach for her phone to start managing the situation the way everyone expected a Forrester to. She just asked the only question that mattered. What if I helped raise him? Daphne stared at her. You mean money? Doctors? I mean everything. A home. Stability. A family where every decision gets made with him at the center, not the company, not the press. Steffy's voice caught slightly. I know what it costs to make hard calls for a child. I'm offering to make this one with you. It wasn't a small thing to offer, and both of them knew it. But Daphne also knew Carter had a right to know he was going to be a father, and that the longer the secret lived, the more damage it would do when it finally broke. It broke sooner than either of them planned. The confrontation. Carter overheard a fragment of a conversation he wasn't supposed to hear, and that was all it took. He confronted Daphne directly, and she didn't try to deny it. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was quiet, which somehow made it worse. I was scared, Daphne admitted. Of what your family would do. Of you deciding you didn't want this, or deciding you wanted all of it and leaving no room for me. None of that gives you the right to keep my own child a secret from me. They argued, really argued, until something in Carter softened under the anger. I don't have this figured out, he told her. But I'm not walking away. I want to be his father. It should have been the moment things got easier. Instead, Daphne told him about Steffy's offer, and Carter's relief curdled into something sharper. She wants to take my son before I've even had the chance to be his father? Steffy, when confronted, didn't back down, but she didn't pretend the offer had been simple, either. I never wanted to take him from you. Daphne told me she didn't think she could do this. I gave her another option. That's all it ever was. He's not a problem to be solved, Carter said. He's my son. That line landed harder than he intended. Steffy heard it, and for the first time, she wondered if she'd overstep. Then Daphne said something that stopped the room cold. I already thought about giving him up. Before any of this. I've been drowning since I found out, scared of losing my job, my life, scared you'd eventually want to control everything and leave no space for me in it. Carter promised her, right there, that he'd never do that. That they could figure out how to raise a child together without forcing themselves into a relationship neither of them was ready for. It was the first time Daphne let herself believe there might be another way through this that didn't mean losing something. The fork in the road. Just as things began to steady, Steffy was handed a complication of her own. A well-connected figure tied to Forrester Creations approached her with an offer, full legal guardianship of the baby, backed by serious money and airtight protection for the child's future. All she had to do was say yes. She almost said no outright. Then she learned Carter had been offered a job that would pull him out of Los Angeles for months at a time, the kind of opportunity he'd wanted his whole career, arriving at the worst possible moment. Daphne heard about it before Carter had the chance to explain, and it reopened every fear she'd tried to set down. "Would you put your work ahead of this baby?" "No," Carter said. But when he tried to explain how much the opportunity meant to him, Daphne realized they weren't just negotiating a decision, they were discovering how differently they each defined responsibility. Watching the two of them pull apart under the pressure, Steffy saw clearly for the first time that the baby had become the center of a tug-of-war between three people who all genuinely believed they knew what was best for him. Then Daphne made her decision. "I want Steffy to take him." Carter was devastated. He begged her to reconsider. Daphne told him it wasn't because she didn't love their son, it was because she loved him too much to let her own fear be the thing that shaped his life. Steffy struggled to accept it. "I don't want to take your chance at being his mother away from you." "You're not taking anything," Daphne said. "I'm choosing this." Carter refused to let it end there. He promised he'd stay in Los Angeles. He'd rework his whole life around this child if that's what it took. He knelt down, put his hand against Daphne's stomach, and quietly told his unborn son he wasn't going anywhere. Daphne broke down. So did Steffy. And then Daphne asked the question that changed the tenor of everything. Could Carter forgive her for being so afraid? "Yes," he said. "I was terrified too." For the first time, instead of defending themselves to each other, they just talked. Honestly, without armor. Neither of them had this figured out. But maybe they didn't have to figure it out alone. Watching them, Steffy understood something about her place in all of it. Maybe she wasn't meant to be this baby's mother. Maybe her role had been to give Carter and Daphne room to realize they didn't have to face any of this by themselves. The scare. Just as the three of them found something like peace, a doctor's visit upended it. Daphne's pregnancy was more complicated than anyone realized, and the baby's paternity wasn't as certain as they'd all assumed. Further testing was needed. Carter's certainty cracked. Daphne insisted she knew what had happened, but fear filled the room anyway. If Carter wasn't the father, Steffy's whole sacrifice had been built on a misunderstanding. And if he was, this was still the biggest decision of his life, arriving all over again. Meanwhile, the guardianship offer stayed on the table, and the man behind it made it clear the window wouldn't stay open forever. Steffy refused to be rushed. "This isn't a transaction," she told him, even as she couldn't deny that what was on offer, a trust fund, an apartment, education, protection from nearly anything that could threaten him, was real. Carter wanted no part of it. Daphne, frightened and uncertain, wondered if taking it might be the safest thing for her son after all. It was Steffy who finally cut through the noise. She told Carter and Daphne plainly. She wouldn't take the baby unless they were completely sure, because once the legal paperwork was signed, there might be no undoing it. That honesty broke something open. Carter admitted, finally, that what scared him most wasn't the job or the money or the family name. It was the possibility of losing his son. Daphne admitted that motherhood itself terrified her. Steffy looked at both of them and saw it clearly. Their fear came from the exact same place. They loved this child. They just didn't know how to say it the same way. Found out. Steffy hadn't meant for anyone else to find out yet, but secrets in that family never stayed secrets for long. Hope noticed first. She cornered Steffy at the design studio one afternoon, quiet and direct. "You've been different. Quieter. Daphne's been scarce, and I know you two have gotten close. Is there something I should know?" "There's nothing to know," Steffy said, holding her stare. "Daphne's dealing with some personal things. That's all." Hope didn't push, but she didn't quite believe it either. Carter found out the real way by walking into it. He arrived at Daphne's apartment on a rainy evening with a folder of contracts Steffy had left at the office, and stopped cold in the doorway. Steffy was on the couch with a baby, his baby, though he didn't know it yet, asleep against her shoulder. Daphne stood nearby with a half-finished bottle in her hand. "Who is he?" Carter asked, low and controlled. Steffy rose slowly, still holding the child. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in her head, and still couldn't find the right words when it mattered. "He's yours," she said simply. "And mine." The folder slipped from Carter's hand and hit the floor. He looked at his son for what felt like the first time, because it was. The baby stirred at the tension in the room, and Steffi soothed him on instinct, her hand moving in slow circles across his back. "You gave him away," Carter said. "Without telling me." "I was trying to protect him," Steffi said. "And you. And everything we've built. There was no good time. Not with Finn, not with the company, not with the press. Any of it could have hurt him before he had a chance. You don't get to decide that alone." "I agreed to this," Daphne said, stepping between them, not as a wall but as a bridge. "I trusted her. I already loved this baby, Carter. I never meant to keep him from you forever. Only until it was safe." Carter looked at her like he was seeing her clearly for the first time too. Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere in the building, a door slammed. The three of them stood in the small living room, bound now by a truth that was already reshaping all of their lives, what they built. What followed wasn't clean or easy. It was late-night phone calls and careful, guarded meetings, each of them wanting something the others weren't sure how to give. Carter wanted his son. Steffi wanted safety for all three of them. Daphne wanted what was best for the baby, even if it meant stepping back. What they landed on was fragile, imperfect, and entirely their own. Daphne would be Elias's primary caregiver. Carter would be named on the birth certificate, with full and unrestricted access. Steffi would remain present in every way that mattered, even if the public version of their lives stayed carefully managed for a while longer. It wasn't the family any of them had pictured. But it was honest, more honest than anything in their curated, camera-ready world usually allowed. 2 months later, the offer resurfaced, delivered by a soft-spoken attorney representing a private foundation with deep pockets and a quiet interest in unconventional family structures. The proposal: a substantial trust for Elias with Daphne, Carter, and Steffi sharing formal legal guardianship. Resources for his education, his safety, anything he'd need. In return, the foundation asked only for confidentiality, and the occasional, anonymous chance to study how families like theirs held together. Steffi read the contract 3 times. Something that generous made her suspicious. But every clause had been thought through, and when she brought it to Carter and Daphne, the three of them sat at Daphne's kitchen table with Elias asleep in the next room and argued it out. The risks, the foundation's real motives, what they'd need to change before they could agree to any of it. Eventually, with amendments that gave them more control over their own lives, they said yes. The trust changed everything, and it changed nothing that mattered most. Elias grew up thriving in Daphne's care. Carter spent his evenings and weekends learning the small, unglamorous language of fatherhood, bottles, bedtime stories, the particular exhaustion that comes with loving someone that small. Steffi found a kind of peace she hadn't expected, the ability to be a mother to him without waiting for the next scandal to take him away. The three of them became something unlikely, a team, contentious some days and surprisingly easy on others, held together by one shared goal: giving Elias a life that didn't carry the weight of the Forrester legacy on it. It wasn't smooth. Hope eventually learned the truth and needed time to move from hurt to something like acceptance. Ridge took the news the way he took most things by then, with the weariness of a man who'd stopped being surprised by his family's secrets long ago. Finn kept a careful distance, though Steffi sometimes caught him watching her with a stillness that told her he understood more than he ever said aloud. The press never got the real story. Just a photo here and there, Daphne with a baby, a passing mention of Carter's growing role in her life. 1 candle. On Elias's first birthday, the three of them gathered in Daphne's apartment. The cake was small and a little lopsided. The gifts were practical, nothing showy. Carter held his son while Steffi lit a single candle. Daphne took the photograph that would end up framed on all 3 of their desks. 3 adults and 1 small child, none of them entirely certain what came next, but all of them present and all of them trying. Steffi watched the flame catch and thought about the long road that had led them here. She'd given her, No, their child away in a moment built out of fear and love in equal measure, and it had led to something none of them could have predicted. A family that didn't look like anything in the Forrester playbook, held together by choice instead of convention. The pregnancy had begun as a crisis. It had ended as an invitation to a harder, more honest kind of life than any of them had been built for, and one they'd chosen anyway. Outside, the city kept moving the way it always did. Inside, Elias laughed at the candle's small flame, and for one quiet moment, everything that had come before felt lighter than it had in a very long time. Los Angeles buzzes today as whispers from the Forrester mansion suggest a twist so wild, longtime fans are refreshing their feeds every 5 minutes. Is it true? Could Steffy Forrester really be about to hand over Carter's baby to Daphne? Buckle up. Here's how it could all go down. A secret that wouldn't stay buried. It started, as these things always do in Los Angeles, with a locked drawer and a guilty conscience. Steffy Forrester had spent weeks carrying a secret so heavy it threatened to crack the foundation of everything she'd built. A secret involving Carter, a baby, and a decision that could blow up 3 families at once. Sources close to the situation, okay, fine, our imagination, suggest that when the truth about the baby's parentage finally came spilling out during a tense confrontation in the Forrester Creations design room, Steffy didn't crumble. She didn't cry. She did something nobody saw coming. She picked up the phone and called Daphne. Wait, who is Daphne and why would Steffy call her? If you're scratching your head, you're not alone. Daphne isn't a name that's been trending in bold and the beautiful circles, which is exactly why this rumored storyline has fans losing their minds. A mysterious woman from Carter's past, quiet, guarded, and fiercely private, Daphne is rumored to be the missing piece of a puzzle Steffy didn't even know she was solving. According to whispers making their way around the fan forums, Daphne isn't just some rando pulled out of thin air. She's tied to Carter by blood, a half-sister, some say, one who lost her own chance at motherhood years ago under circumstances the show has kept frustratingly vague. And Steffy? Steffy knew. The decision that shook everyone. Picture the scene. Dim lighting, a half-finished glass of wine, and Steffy standing at the window of her office overlooking the city, baby monitor in hand. She's just spent an entire episode wrestling with whether she's fit to raise a child that isn't biologically connected to the family she's spent her whole life protecting. Then, in true Steffy fashion, she does the unexpected. Instead of fighting for custody, instead of turning this into another explosive Forrester family war, she makes the call. She tells Daphne the truth. She offers her the baby. Fans watching this play out, in our heads at least, are torn straight down the middle. Some see it as the most selfless, mature decision Steffy has ever made, a woman finally putting a child's well-being above her own pride and the endless drama of Los Angeles high society. Others are convinced it's a setup, a Trojan horse of a decision that will detonate the second Carter finds out his baby is being raised by a woman he barely mentions in polite conversation. Carter's reaction? Explosive. You know this wouldn't be bold and the beautiful without Carter storming into a room demanding answers. When word gets back to him that Steffy has essentially handed his child over to Daphne without so much as a heads-up, the fallout is immediate and messy. Is it betrayal? Is it a gift? Carter, ever the lawyer, wants due process. He wants transparency. What he gets instead is a tangled mess of old family secrets, a sister he never fully acknowledged, and a decision that was made entirely without him. Speculation is already running wild about whether Carter will fight to reverse Steffy's decision, whether Daphne will prove to be the stabilizing force nobody expected, or whether this whole storyline is building toward a courtroom showdown worthy of prime time. Why Steffy might actually be right. Here's the thing about Steffy Forrester, she's never made decisions lightly. Every twist, every scheme, every impulsive move has always come from somewhere deep and complicated. If this storyline plays out the way rumors suggest, her choice to give the baby to Daphne isn't recklessness. It's calculation dressed up as compassion. Maybe she sees something in Daphne that nobody else does, a stability, a devotion, a second chance neither of them expected. Maybe Steffy, tired of the chaos that follows every Forrester decision, wanted to give this child something rare in this universe. A fresh start, away from the schemes and secrets that define everyone else's lives. Or maybe, and this is where the drama really lives, she has an ulterior motive we haven't even guessed yet. What happens next? If the rumors hold any water, expect fireworks. Expect Ridge to weigh in with his signature mix of concern and unsolicited advice. Expect Brooke to raise an eyebrow from across the room. Expect Daphne's quiet, private life to be turned upside down the second she becomes the center of a Forrester Carter custody storyline. And expect Steffy, because it's always Steffy, to stand at the center of it all, calm, composed, and infuriatingly sure she made the right call. The bottom line: whether this rumored twist becomes reality or fades into fanfiction folklore, one thing's certain. The mere idea of Steffy handing Carter's baby to a mysterious new character named Daphne has fans buzzing harder than they have in months. It's bold. It's unexpected. It's exactly the kind of gut-punch storyline that keeps viewers coming back episode after episode.